All right, you're looking at it right there, the David Geffen Galleries. We've been waiting for this one for decades with hundreds of millions of dollars involved as well. And the reviews are interesting. I mean, it's a brutalist concrete spanning Wilshire. It is really something with the campus as well. And the reviews are in, and they're interesting. They're mixed in different ways. We can talk about the New York Times calling it daring and dazzling, a new LACMA floating above Los Angeles. And there's another one as well. You can see this next one, which will be from, I believe, the Wall Street Journal. This one's from Vogue. It says history, culture, and place ground LACMA's breathtaking new David Geffen Gallery. So you've got breathtaking there as well. And then the Wall Street Journal, which said LACMA's David Geffen Galleries are a formless maze. Can you say that with love? It's one of the things that we're going to talk about right now, because joining me to discuss is someone who has been there. It is Alissa Walker, transportation writer and editor of the Torch newsletter, which covers the latest developments in Los Angeles, preparing to host the 28 Olympics, amongst other things, looking at LA as a mega host city, and so much more. Alissa, great to have you here.
Always great to be here.
We are talking about the Geffen Galleries. I went as well.
Yes, good.
On media preview. You went. I went to a member preview. You went as a media preview. Did you find it dazzling or a formless maze, or dazzling because it's a formless maze?
Yeah, I think we can wrap them all the adjectives together. Right? I mean, people were definitely getting lost, and that's kind of the charm of it. Like I said, you have to just pretend you're in someone's home, like a very wealthy person that has a very nice art collection. Yeah. The curtains really add to that feeling, and you just kind of walk around for a few hours.
I think it's a great way to think about it. There's these tables with like Mesopotamian pots, and then there's a Studebaker car, and your brain has to figure out what to do with that. Like, are these in conversation, and why? And then your brain kind of does, unless you're just frustrated by the experience. I guess that's a choose your adventure of it, but it is non-hierarchical and also non-chronological and really loosely themed.
Yeah,
right?
you're allowed to make your own connections. Like you said, you draw your own narrative between the different pieces. And then there's pieces that are, popping out that we haven't seen in a long time. So that's exciting too.
Yeah, and we think about this structurally as well, which I know you think about. You think about the shade. There's a lot of north-facing light inside the Geffen Galleries. There are signs that say, hey, you're looking at art in a new light because of this sunlight. I guess that's a way to sell it.
I was hearing there was a lot of glare in some of the gallery. The curtains are just, they're a piece of art themselves, and you really have to look at how they kind of add this like shimmering glow as you're walking through it. But then they also block your views sometimes, which are kind of the best part in some ways. So.
And of course there's an Erewhon as well, and there's a lot of things for people to talk about. It's the construction of this thing that's also interesting, the amount of money that's spent, the connection to transit, which is where we really get into your expertise on these things. How are you thinking about this Geffen Gallery extension, LACMA, with respect to what we're seeing with Metro? Yeah,
like it's not complete to me until that station opens. So we've got May 8th is when I'll actually be diving into how it is actually working. But it is crazy that it is literally a freeway. Well, it's a freeway. It's a piece of like freeway infrastructure in a way, but it's a pedestrian overpass, right? Yes. If you think about it. So it's going up and over Wilshire. It's a stunning view once you get up there. It's actually, I sat up there and counted the 720 buses, and I can't wait to take my kids and have us sit there and have this new perspective on the neighborhood. But yeah, the way that the metro station is going to bring together, and this is the D-line extension that's going to go to Beverly Hills, eventually to Westwood, hopefully beyond. The way that it's going to be able to get visitors there is the most exciting part.
I think it's good to point out the views. You haven't really seen LA in this part of LA in this way before, standing over the overpass, which I did with my daughter, and she loved it, and your kids are going to love it as well, and it's one of the reasons I think to go. And you call it an overpass, yes, but one that requires a ticket to walk over. So pedestrian overpass, but for those who are willing to go to LACMA and invest in this. It's also part of what we see with LA 28 coming. A lot of these museums trying to get their glow up in time. The Brea Tar Pits, which you mentioned in your Torched article on this as well, is amongst those, and also the Getty, and all of these are cutting it. Talk about the scheduling and the cutting it close.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because you're at LACMA and you're looking out the windows, and this construction still they're still doing things to LACMA too, but also right next door at the Tar Pits, and Tar Pits are going to close for 2 years, which is cutting it very close as we get we're looking at 2028. We'll be closed for the World Cup visitors, which is really interesting too, and then the Getty is actually going to be closing for a year starting in March. So So you've got these like very, a lot of other museums are making these big expansions or, doing like LACMA, doing like a whole new building. But these ones are getting right down to the wire.
Yeah, and you talk about getting down to the wire. At LAX, there's the people mover.
Oh,
and
you want to bring that up today?
Well, I guess we need to, because there's cost overruns, the delays, and by the way, it is moving right now.
I saw it on the way here.
Without the people, though.
Yeah, I saw it's just
trials.
a mover. It's just a mover. Yeah, they're doing the testing right now. Basically, you would call it like pre-revenue service. It's going to be free, so it's not quite that. But this means we're in the window of when it's actually going to open.
Right.
I'm going to knock on wood as I say that. But we're getting very, very close. We're many years late, and we're not going to probably make the World. We're definitely not going to make the World Cup deadline for that one.
Yeah, which is sad. But LA 28 seems like that's at least possible, and that will be helpful overall. And you understand the power of transit and also what all these things mean from a cultural standpoint. The Cultural Olympiad, a part of this, the arts programming that coincides with LA 28, especially because you went to Paris and you thought a lot about this. Talk to us about our trip and what we learned from Paris and your trip.
Well, yeah, I mean, looking at comparing the deadlines and comparing like the time frame of what we're up against and what they got accomplished. We had 4 extra years, and in many ways, we are also cutting it close as a city. Things like the Cultural Olympiad, this is the arts festival that runs concurrent. There are going to be some announcements coming soon. The city and the county are doing some stuff. We're going to hear some more from LA 28. But I think like the biggest lesson to look at, from Paris is just the way they were treating things like shade and cooling infrastructure and bike lanes, and I'll just throw in trees again. It's just there's a very clear legacy there. Beautiful new subway stations, new housing. They did a really great job, and I hope we can live up to it.
Yeah, well, it's a very short timeline to accomplish all the things that you're mentioning. But I did see in your Torch article you were saying that in Paris, you were saying there was actually a dip in tourism that summer, but then a rebound the next. What was the dynamic for that, and might that apply to LA?
Yeah, that's a pretty typical thing I think you hear with these mega events. So especially the way that Paris was set up. Remember the opening ceremonies were like down in the Seine, so there were all these security fences. It was very difficult for people to get into the middle of the city. So you saw like dips at the Louvre and other major museums, like 25%, during the activities that were happening. But then afterwards, they actually saw this big boom the next summer, and even this summer they were preparing for even more visitors. So I think the way to think about it, the way we're making these investments, it might be hard to get around the city. It's not going to be quite the same, probably the way that we are dispersed.
Yeah.
Although I don't know the opening ceremony plans. Those could be a big surprise to us.
Right.
But yeah, I think we're not preparing really for 28. We're preparing for 29.
Interesting. Well, for the opening ceremony in Paris, they went down the Seine. In LA, we'll go down the 10. It'll be just as beautiful, at least. Alyssa, Torched is a great resource for all of us. It's great to have you on. Much more to talk about. Thanks for coming in.
I am always glad to answer your questions.
Always happy to have you with great answers. Alissa Walker talking. Of course, go to Torch LA for more of Melissa, and we much will come up on Inside the Issues. We'll be right back. Stay with us.